Hey guys, Mitko here from DN Models, and today we're unboxing Zoukei-Mura's Heinkel He-219A-0 Uhu in 32nd scale. This is one of the two options for He-219 in that scale, other one being Revell tooling. The box, as you can see, is quite big and sturdy. As you might have noticed, mine came severely damaged. The local postal services are very lousy and they dumped mine in water, plus it was smashed. Probably somebody stepped on it or kicked it. For my surprise, everything inside was perfectly safe and sound. On the side of Zoukei-Mura's Heinkel, we can find pictures of the built plane from two different perspectives and one of the partially stripped bird. All the description is in Japanese, so I cannot help with explaining what is written. I am guessing some airplane history facts and kit highlights. The sample that Zoukei-Mura kindly sent to me have marking that is for Japan only. Maybe there is another option with English inscription as well. Cautionary information is of course available in English, and I was pleasantly surprised by the fact that there is a price in Japanese yen too. This is some sort of a manufacturer's suggested retail price, which is very helpful. Zoukei-Mura kits are not available for sale that widely, so speculation can be avoided with that, or at least partially. On the other side of the box there are more pictures of the highlights of the kit. Antennas, engines, cockpit, landing gear and machine guns. Probably Revell did that on their box too. However, here we have a professionally built airplane showing very clearly that every section is more like a standalone kit rather than being part of one whole. Everything is lacking weathering, and that helps you comprehend the complexity of the details too. Comparing this to other manufacturers' box prices, I must add that here the building process is completed by very talented modeler, making everything looks quite vivid and realistic and not toyish like we usually see on the sides. Removing the top of the box, we can find a cardboard box with a flap cover. This box is what saved the day with my kit. Never mind the look here, it is far better if intact. This one suffered through a lot. Inside we have a lot of separately packed plastic sprues. Plastic bags, keeping them safe, are softish and slightly larger than the sprues themselves. Looks like Tamiya's smaller scales actually, but better. The canopy parts are covered with additional protection. We have 3 of those, 2 clear ones and 1 with plastic frames. We have repetitive sprues, of course, since Heinkel He-219 was a twin-engine airplane and we will need 2 of some parts. Engines especially. The plastic is slightly softer than what I'm used to. This is something that I found particularly nice. Stiffer plastic is easier to be sanded and treated badly, but when it comes down to airplanes, soft is far better. You can keep all the geometry in proper shape without much effort. At the bottom we have a plastic bag holding the instructions, masks, decals and the resin parts. Also survived the flood just because of the proper packing. On the side we have one more small and long cardboard box holding additional goodies. I will surprise you with these a bit later in the video. I will just say now that this is quite heavy. A properly sealed plastic bag holds the instruction booklet alongside with a couple of add-ons included in the kit. They are masks, resin part, 2 leaflets and a decal sheet. Thankfully to the proper packing, mine were intact. The instruction sheet is made in very suitable for the era brown and worn looking color. It looks aged and reminds of the period even if you don't think about the kit in connection to it. It is made from fine material and designed very professionally. First, when you open it, one of the leaflets pops out. We'll get back to that later. The booklet looks pretty much like a regular book for reading or a history book for that specific plane. It features contents with chapters, each dedicated to a different section of the build. Everything is written on 3 languages here: German, English and Japanese. Later on, it is English and Japanese only. There is a skill level marked from 1 to 3 and it is applicable for each section. Also, most of the airplane parts are shown and explained. Even though explained basically, you can learn a lot for what you're building and take few steps closer to an expert level of knowledge about Heinkel Uhu 219A-0. I think everybody will agree that this is a slightly different approach that we are all used to in the business. Very small details are touched here and there, which makes everything at a higher level and very pleasant for the eye. Focusing mostly on the information about the real aircraft, of course. Surprisingly for me, Vallejo paints are suggested for the paint. It is true that their RLM colors are pretty neat, but I wonder why those exactly, since they aren't the preferred option for many modelers. The building starts with the engines, which impress from the get-go. Being marked as a lower skill level required, they feature a lot of parts and they are very detailed. Almost nothing is left to be scratch-built or improved. The visual representation of everything hints the modeler about what can be expected and, of course, goals that can be aimed at. Pictures are very clear and very nice, which is an additional help to the process and helps understanding everything too. And this is just for the engines. With those we have the pistons and the rods visible, which is truly amazing. Enclosing those forever will be a huge sacrifice for many. Turbocharger, spark plug cord, reductor, arming plate, or cooler fluid container, you name it, everything is present in plastic. Especially nice is the fact that we have color pictures of the built and unweathered engine showing how it should look once built. Different lined colors like blue or red make those two pieces of the kit shine. Every interesting section has Super Wing Series design concept, a small box showing additional information making the building process a learning curve and everything a lot more exciting. I believe many will enjoy doing that part and its weathering, especially after learning which part is which. After the engines, we have the cockpit top next. Again, everything starts with sub-contents and unweathered color pictures of the build section. This is a relatively short part of the instruction sheet, but it features some options and it presents the modeler with the chance to do a delicate and fine weathering. Unlike the engines, here we have only worn areas, but in that scale it is a challenge to do everything as it were. Slightly more complex is the build of the fuselage. The contents list here is 4 times bigger too. It all starts with the nose section enclosing the cockpit top and then continues with the fuselage. Super Wing Series design concepts are included with interesting information about what was installed and for what purpose. Just a short glimpse at the instruction sheet and you will see that immediately everything becomes much more clearer. More and more options at each step and more interior details. Sections of the inside of the fuselage are available for showing and presented in sectors too. Schräge Musik, the slang for jazz music or the notorious gun fitted, was the part of the aircraft responsible for shooting so many Allied planes, especially Mosquitoes. That Schräge Musik part is represented here, of course, with superb detail. Just for your info, there is aftermarket metal parts from Zoukei-Mura for the armament too. Gun sections got special attention from the Japanese maker. I assume that this is because of the fact that the airplane itself is just a platform on which engineers mount armament and technology which is war-oriented. Besides, it is pretty obvious that the armament really deserves attention due to its mean look and the fact that it takes big part of the fuselage. What I found especially nice with the instructions of all Zoukei-Mura kits that I've seen so far is the proper geometry and advisory alignment included. Due to the specific shape of Heinkel Uhu, we have that for the tail section, of course, here. Super Wing Series design concept with interesting facts featured also. The main wings follow. This is the biggest part of the build probably. You gotta have in mind that there are many details of the so-called skeleton of the aircraft included. You can do this kit partially stripped with many of the details shown. I bet almost everybody will do that with the engines, at least. Of course, they are not the only thing to show here, just the contrary, there are only small fractions of what you can expose with this kit. The whole build reminds me of a phrase quite often used by modelers, plastic porn. I think if there is one, this is where you can find it. Sub-assemblies everywhere and all kinds of them. Almost everything can be exposed, left open or left outside of the aircraft for showing off your skills. The engineering of the kit itself is at a very high level, and decisions typical for the Japanese makers are implemented in the best possible way. Some part of the instructions feature easy and straightforward building process, of course. If that amount of detail scares you, as it did scare me, I can assure you that Zoukei-Mura did their best to ease the job for you and make the whole ride a truly pleasant experience. The landing gear, for example. Zoukei-Mura added metal struts and plastic parts alongside with them to mix everything and guarantee safe structure for that heavy bird. We have options here as from the kit out of the box and for the aftermarket parts available for purchase. Being one of its most distinctive feature, the tricycle landing gear is an important part of the He-219, and Zoukei-Mura made their best to put your attention right where it's needed. We have a couple of different wheel options for that plane used mostly in respect to the different airfields that the aircraft were based. After completing everything, the instruction sheet continues with the final touches like flaps position, engine cowlings, antenna mounts, and such. Flaps, of course, can be executed in the down or up position, depends on the way that you want to present your aircraft. Same goes for the cowlings of the engines. Of course, the scariest part of everything is the antenna here. Even though in that scale, it will be pretty challenging to keep everything safe and sound. The Japanese maker did everything within their engineering skills to make it safe as possible, but still, attention will be required here. Another pleasant surprise for me was the fact that each antenna is outlined and explained, something which even sometimes pilots of the planes forget. Canopy comes afterwards. As you will see shortly when we are discussing the sprues, the options here are enormous. What's important to be said is that the canopy of the Uhu is quite specific. It combines the newest designs of its time and still bears the features of the era. That is what concludes the build, which with this set of instructions look like a hell of a journey. Two camouflage options are available. They are light blue-gray color with mottling. First aircraft feature half of the bottom painted black. Markings are huge, but there are few. The scale here gives you the option, but nevertheless, be sure to gear up with a good airbrush. Mottling can be tricky sometimes, and I am strongly advising you to test before paint this bird. It is worth to be very careful with that camo scheme and with that kit in general. Not much more to be said, since thorough information about painting and marking of that Heinkel is partial or missing in general. I mean the real aircraft, of course. The booklet ends with the description of the sprues alongside with what I assume are prices for each sprue. This is oriented toward Japanese market, so not many will be able to use it. As a short conclusion, best instruction booklet that I've seen in my life. Let's hope that the industry will learn from Zoukei-Mura and aim to that high standard. Nothing comes close to that booklet. The leaflet that you saw me taking out from the first page of the instruction is meant to be used with the Japanese market only. It is some sort of a fan club for Super Wing series from Zoukei-Mura. The basic sheet is nicely designed, featuring Uhu picture and the Super Wing series logo. Beneath the Japanese inscription there is a coupon that is supposed to be cut and filled out. There is another small leaflet, again in Japanese, which I am guessing is the form for missing parts or something similar to that. Here again we have some blank space to fill out. If you ask me, emailing the company will do for most of non-Japanese speakers. After those two we have another leaflet, but this time with a Dutch part to it. This is the resin add-on representing the wing lights of the Uhu. Everything is described thoroughly and holds information that will guide even the newbies in the hobby. Clearly, Zoukei-Mura wanted to ease up the work for their clients again. Since this is a resin part, different glue is to be used, and the fact that this is missing in the instruction sheet is taken into account. Both facts are written down here, plus more. Next are the mask set and the metal rod that sits in the same envelope. I believe this is from the front gear strut. The mask sheet is made from tin foil, green in color. Cutaways are clear and there is no shrinking, which is typical for those kind of masking tapes. I'm not sure what is the provider of the material, but since I've seen my fair share of masking mediums, I can assure you that this is top-notch material. This is a set that covers the canopy, and I'm not quite sure why Zoukei-Mura stopped there. The decals are printed by Cartograph, and that speaks for itself. They are the best in business and have been for quite a while. No wonder Zoukei-Mura decided to spice up their Heinkel with Cartograph. In my opinion, there is no other way around that. Most likely, the swastikas will be missing from the Revell sheet, even though they usually come up with superb decals as well. Here we have that included, which makes things more realistic. There isn't overly many technical markings, and I think that is due to two reasons. First, there is not much information about that airplane in general. Second, this is a night fighter, and bright markings over that stealth camo schemes are not a clever idea if you want to stay invisible. The Italian decal maker printed everything with great deal of precision and over tiny transparent fill barely visible. This will ensure lowest amount of silvering and less varnish layers needed. There are some emblems and some dashed line for the technical help of the ground staff. There are some cockpit dashboard decals too. I doubt many will use those, but at least you can use them as a reference guide how to paint your gauges properly. Zoukei-Mura offers aftermarket decal set too, so be sure to check their website for more information. I'm sure if you're not satisfied, you will find some aftermarket substitute for those too, although I cannot see a decent reason to not use these here. Let's take a look at some sprues. First, I'm going to show you a big one. Also, I am going to follow the order in which I found them when opened the box, or at least be close to it. This is Sprue C, and it holds the major parts of the wings, ailerons and flaps. The first impression that I got was the fact that they are lacking most of the rivets, and I was slightly disappointed. However, when I come to think of it, riveting is nothing too complex to be done, and if you really want to follow the whole riveting pattern of the plane, you got to work your way through that. Even the most riveted modelers like Edward and Trumpeter does not feature the full riveting detail needed. So I realized that Zoukei probably did that for the best. When you're going to do some, well, do them all. The bigger ones are here actually, so it's up to one's personal preference to choose either to have it that way or add them with the help of a riveting tool. You have very nice and fine recessed lines to follow, and it won't be a problem at all. Besides partially missing riveting here, everything else seems perfect. Nice impression I got from the attachment points of the parts to the sprues. They are delicate and positioned at the right places to create as less troubles as possible. Wing size is impressive, as you might expect from the scale of the kit. This will become one very big bird once built. Then we have two sprues featuring the propellers, wheels, wheel struts and other parts. Those are Sprue J's. They are equal, of course, since we have a twin-engine aircraft. The detail molded on those two is superb. Some details that usually you have to add from scratch built materials are added here, and Zoukei-Mura did very fine job with it. Propeller diameter is quite big, especially when I compare that with the 32nd scale BF109. Wheels have a basic look, but there was an option with those. Of course, aftermarket ones are available again from Zoukei-Mura, and you can get them through their website. Some antennas and some strut details featured here too. We have the main struts made from plastic with very nice details overall. Also worth mentioning that all of the details seen here is with very little flash and defects. I cannot say absolutely, but everything is quite nice and clearly molded. I am sure that many of you will think of a way to improve even that, but out-of-the-box lovers like myself, well, for us these parts will do just fine. Sprue B comes next. Again, we have two of these, and again, for the same reasons. Those sprues feature parts of the engines, and this was a twin. Engine cowlings, casings, and doors, detailed inside and out, can be found here. Unfortunately, we have some ejection pin marks, but nothing that can be dealt with. Also, some riveting on the inside of the doors. Very good base for weathering. Actually, the fact that we have almost everything available for showing will help a lot here. I know ejection pin marks can be a letdown for many. However, sometimes this is a necessary evil during the injection molding process, so bear with me here a little longer and I promise you will see that this airplane is one of the best kits on the market. Some riveting to be done on the other sides here too. Then we have Sprue Eye. Sprue Eye is a narrow and long one. It holds the front wheel strut and its wheel plus the rim. Some strut parts and some antennas too. We also have some of the guns here. I gotta let you know that I check out the Zoukei-Mura's website and I found their turned metal gun barrels to be very tempting spice up for that kit. Not that the detail here is bad, just the contrary, but it can be done better with those. Actually, some very delicate parts here showing precision molding techniques and great devotion to detail. Lines of bullets can be found as well. Their detail is great, and when you paint them with metallizers, everything will shine brightly and will be very attractive. Also, on Sprue Eye, we can find very interesting part with a lot of cables and wiring depicted. I found that part to be really attractive and realistic. Although it can be done from scratch built materials, it is really a pleasant surprise to have a kit with that featured inside. Then we have Sprue D, another bigger sprue from the Heinkel kit. From the cutaways on the panels here is clearly visible that you can show off a lot of the interior parts. Almost everything can be shown, and these openings will help a lot with it. Usually the regular kits that we have, in case you want to show something, cutting, sanding and filling up with putty is required. A tedious process which repulses many. Even with that, resin parts are still popular among modelers. Imagine here we have everything inside of the kit and with openings already done for us. Rivets are still missing on the most of the details here, but hey, with that holes everywhere, I bet few will note their absence. The eye of the viewer will be drawn to the openings and the internal parts that are inside of the wings, fuselage or engines. We have so much of the internals of the Heinkel 219 here that the skin of the aircraft is practically useless. This is typical for Zoukei-Mura, and this is what made the company famous in the first place. The fact that you can show a lot from the internals without the hassle to do it by yourself. A new breed of scale models, a class of its own. Engine parts comes next. We have two of these sprues. That is Sprue G. On it we can find the most vital parts of the Daimler Benz 603 engine. This was state-of-the-art power plant used in many twin-engine applications during World War II, including Messerschmitt 410. Molded here we have most of the wiring, lines, details and cables. Those we usually make from thin wire as a scratch or aftermarket add-ons, quite often expensive ones. Not here. Zoukei-Mura added those from plastic and gave them to us, so the job just became more pleasant. From the get-go I knew that the Heinkel from Zoukei had the engines included. What I didn't know was that the internals of those engines are here too. I was amazed and stunned to see the pistons and the piston rods inside of the engine block. They can be done visible too. This is something truly amazing, and for sure nobody else did that before in 32nd scale. There is some ejection pin marks inside of the cylinders, unfortunately, but this can be repaired. How can we complain when we have the pistons and the rods too? It is simply impossible to do that. I believe that only a Japanese company is capable of that level of devotion and respect to the tiniest detail. Nothing beats that. I was speechless, and I'm guessing you are too while seeing it. The turbocharger is here too. My favorite part of the engines, always. Radiator grills, too. Pretty much everything you can think of. Just gear yourself up with time and some patience. Another large sprue comes next. This is very long and massive parts holding the fuselage. Everything is quite flexible, and that helps when you consider the size of it. The details here are from the outside and inside too. The two parts show different details, so you won't be bored with exposing those and leave them as they are. There are minor parts on the sprue as well. Obviously, for Zoukei-Mura, size isn't of great importance when it comes down to precision. Everything, no matter big or small, is detailed inside out. You have an option to comment down below. Please name a kit that comes close to that one. I dare you. I haven't seen such. There are some that are close, but not a single one at that level. I haven't tested that yet, but I heard that the specific plastic material here is very pleasant for working, especially sanding. Of course, with that level of detail, prepping the surface will be essential. Picking up the proper plastic is part of the process in which the maker justifies the detailing of the scale model. Obviously, here this is too a job well done. Of course, nothing is perfect. We have some more rivets here, but there is room for more and more. Also, the ejection pin marks. They are present, and, as I've said before, that will frustrate some modelers. But if there is no guts, there will be no glory. You can gear up, sand it, fill it, sand it again, and everything should be just fine. Better have those details and get the internal ones too, rather than don't have anything, have a plain insides and dull appearance of the kit. Right? Empennage comes next. A relatively large sprue with biggish details called Sprue Eye. Actually, the span of the thing is similar to most of single-engine aircraft from the same era and 48 scale. Pretty impressive. The detail here is more visible than on the rest of the kit. That doesn't mean inconsistency in engineering, but rather different riveting over the panels. Here we have bigger rivets, as well as recessed panel lines that again are missing the small ones. Control surfaces are separate, preset for positioning. One thing I have to note here, Tamiya's new 32nd scale aircraft feature metal rods along which the surface moves. That might be considered better than what we have here by some. In my opinion though, plastic scale model kits aren't meant to be moved. You rub the paints, you rub the varnishes, and you rub the weathering in between surfaces, which slowly but steadily damages everything. So in this case here I consider the decision better. Why? Well, the scale model kit is like a painting. You paint the thing once and then you don't move or exchange details. That is Sprue F, and it features very intriguing parts molded in quite attractive manner. Detail molding here is one of the best seen with this Heinkel kit. The lines, the attachment points and the rivets are clearly visible, leaving no room for improving. We have some electronics here, or whatever it was called back in the day. Also, few cross sections, detailed with great attention and devotion. Especially impressive is the part that features the 4 guns incorporated into a single piece of plastic. Very mean looking part with what I believe is the flame suppressor enhancements. It looks like from outer space, and for that time it probably was. The detail on that sprue is rather confusing in the positive way. It is so nicely executed with such details that it's hard to comprehend it the first time when you see it. Of course, those details are explained inside of the booklet, and while building it, you'll learn a lot about which part was doing what. There are many sub-assemblies here with unusual looks, so you might want to leave more parts open and visible. Not much flash or defects on the material here to complain about. Many of the parts are quite 3D looking. They grow vertically on the sprue. Especially the fuel cells, which feature another purpose alongside filling the internal space. The balance of the built model. A massive sprue with tons of details and surprisingly interesting parts. One long and narrow sprue called Sprue L. We have typical rectangular sprues in the box alongside with those long and narrow ones. This is because of the shape of the fuselage. We have the belly of the airplane here. Openings, of course, to show off what's inside. It is divided into 2 parts. The front one features more openings, and from what is visible here, one might guess that out of this world looking for barrel gun is supposed to go inside here. Some help from the riveting tool will be needed, just because, due to the round shape of the parts, everything looks too plain and simple and will scream for a bit of work over it. Even with the size of those parts, I can assure you that they are flexible enough so the alignment won't be a problem at all. Besides, we are talking the superior Japanese kit maker here, so I doubt that there will be any issues with the fit whatsoever. This is Sprue H, and undoubtedly this sprue will surprise you with the detail all over. Just wait. For example, on the sides of one of the parts we have the fuses. I was so pleasantly surprised to find those. They are molded with attention to detail, and if you paint them well, you will hardly tell that this is a scale model. The gauges on the side panels in the cockpit, as well as the ones on the deck of the aircraft, are detailed perfectly. For example, you can see clearly the artificial horizon, the HSI, and the engine gauges. On the flat surfaces, there is nothing flat actually. All the rivets and the cables are there, following the pattern of the real aircraft. Everything here is shown down to the needle of each gauge. Another great impression here make the seats. There were 2 types. Some airplane featured ejection seats, although not many in this A0 variant, and others featured standard seats with parachute in the seats. Here we have super texturing, cushions made with all that is needed for perfect weathering and painting. Also worth noticing are the seat belts, which are, in my opinion, better than what we have usually made from photo etch. These here are not thick at all, and they will be perfect representation if you carefully paint them and weather them. Most definitely here, seats are pure art. Just look at the detail for a moment. Radar is hidden behind the nose cone, and this one is molded alongside with the base struts of the antennas. A clever decision here. You can see that even if you leave your nose cone aside, you will have enough to show for with this piece of plastic. The wing skeleton is one of the biggest parts of the kit. It holds many of the sub-assemblies, and that is why it is made from thick material. Somehow mine survived a very bad damage on the box and kept its shape properly. Some cleaning will be needed here since there are many attachment points and some flash. With the size of the parts though, that wouldn't be a problem. It will just take some time. A very big part and the one responsible for the overall shape of that huge bird. If you remember the beginning of the video, I promised you a surprise. I was 2 in for 1 when I first opened this. Carefully packed inside, we can find a big chunk of metal, which obviously serves as a weight for the aircraft. Right next to it, there is another pack which holds something more. I've read somewhere that there is an aftermarket set from Zoukei-Mura for this Zoukei-Mura Heinkel. It was one among many, and it represented the wheel struts made from metal. Imagine my surprise when I find out that there are metal struts already included in this set. Of course, the aftermarket set promises slightly better quality, and that's why there is one in the first place. However, here I can see only nice things. There is some seam line or flash left from the molding process, something typical for metal parts. Maybe in the other aftermarket set, this is less. There is areas which will require sanding and polishing too. In general though, the struts looks fantastic and surprisingly they come with the kit too. Nice impression is the fact that they feature some very delicate details alongside the chunky rods from which they are made of. Those delicate details are nicely depicted and they look just fine too. The holes drilled are clean and in general the work required to make those great is not much. Actually, they look better than many aftermarket metal struts I've seen. The big chunk of metal that is shaped as a box is meant to go inside of one of the fuel cells. Very clever move. You keep both the balance of the aircraft and you hide the necessary weight. Usually we have only information that weight is needed, with sometimes advisory grams for proper balance. Here Zoukei-Mura gave us the proper weight with the correct shape and solved the problem in a clever way. Brilliant solution here, and as you can see for yourself, high quality execution too. Very carefully wrapped are the sprues with the canopy parts. There are 2 clear ones and 1 light gray plastic. First sprue with the clear parts is Sprue K. It shows superb quality of the transparent material with no reflections or defects. Heinkel 219 canopy was more like a bubble type thing, which was relatively new for that period. Just remember the first 109s up until late G versions. With that in mind, you can guess that even with the real thing, the quality was not the best possible, since it was just the beginning of that concept. I have to add that everything on that sprue looks more than great. We have a dashboard made of clear material, which is not the only dashboard included in this kit. Just another option for the modeler. Every detail, every part, flawless. Then we have the frame sprue. That is Sprue M. It is made from soft light gray plastic and it is an option for those who wish to build their clear parts over sturdy frames instead of painting the clear material inside and out. This I believe presents to a modeler a wonderful option to make a diorama or a vignette with an abandoned or damaged aircraft. Easily doable when you base your canopy over a stiffer frame like these here and make the glass cracked, missing or partially damaged. The frame itself is not thick nor overly thin either, very flexible in the same time. Definitely will be easier to be painted and weathered compared to the single piece clear parts. And those do come next. This is Sprue N. They are basically the same thing as the 2 sprues that we just saw. Here we have a single piece moldings which are more suitable for closed canopy, for example airplane in flight, a sight rarely seen but opted here. If you use those and close everything, you still will be able to finish your plane properly, but you will save some time on painting and weathering, delicate attachment of the parts to the sprue and clear material. Especially nice I found to be the wing lights cover, which seems like a thick one but with good transparency. This is the part that covers the resin add-on, and although not many pay attention to wing lights, they are very important. After all, this is a night fighter, and during takeoff and landings, the lights are a vital part of the design and the frame. Many companies are lacking finesse when doing clear parts, but not this one. The other competitor of that Heinkel in scale, the Revell Uhu, probably will show an inferior product in that specific section. Let's wrap it up. We have two other kits with decent qualities available on the market. First one, in order of appearance, is Tamiya's 48 scale Uhu. Late 19th tooling with typical Tamiya design and features. Smaller and older than ours here. Second one that compares within the same scale and was released at the same time as Zoukei-Mura kit is the Revell tooling. Yeah, it's 32nd scale, but it's Revell. Yeah, it is released in 2013, but it is still Revell. The price is 40% of Zoukei's kit, and there is more than one reason why. We have nothing close to the Japanese kit, and the only high point is the fact that we have more versions available with the Revell one. So if you're not buying it just because it is cheaper, I would suggest to look for Zoukei-Mura first. We have an amazing kit at hand here. Best Uhu in any scale undoubtedly, and among the top 3 or 5 kits ever. Superb engineering, a lot of options and a lot of aftermarket parts being supplied by the Japanese manufacturer. It is true that they are made from other companies, but they were demanded by Zoukei-Mura, and this will guarantee that you are on the right track. The plane itself is a state of art. Just imagine this long aircraft with so many antennas and with that camo scheme 75 years ago. It resembles a nasty insect ready to kill. The insect world is harsh, and so the reality was back then. As you can see on the box art, the burning German city beneath, a falling from the sky British heavy bomber. Very sad reality. Many German cities were bombed during the end stages of the war, this being Churchill's idea for some sort of a wicked punishment or revenge. Many of those cities weren't even military-oriented, purely civilian population. And with that in mind, the box art brings sadness and heavy feelings. At the same time, it justifies the role of the Uhu as a protector of the skies, a plane that fought for the fatherland and fought fearlessly. Something that I believe Zoukei-Mura pays a lot of respect to, as we should all. Thank you for watching. I hope that I haven't bored you with this long review. I think that Heinkel 219 kit deserves it, and honestly, I could have made it even longer. Thanks to Zoukei-Mura for the sample that their team kindly sent me for review. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. Visit Zoukei's website, you'll be amazed what they have for sale there. Stay tuned for more, since I plan to review more of their kits in the future, especially the Horton and the Sky Raider. Again, thank you for being with me for such a long video, and I will see you in the next one.